Welcome to Inside the Sermon.
Hello.
Today, we are opening up the files on what is probably the single most crucial message of the entire year for Fairlawn Family Church.
Absolutely. This is the 2026 vision message. It's called Grace Like Rain, and it was delivered by Pastor Jimmy.
And this really is the foundation, right?
Yeah.
It sets the tone for how the whole congregation is supposed to operate for the next 12 months.
It does, and Pastor Jimmy, he started by identifying a pattern that I think traps most of us.
Oh, for sure. He jumped right into that vicious cycle of the new year.
Yeah.
You know, we desperately want 2026 to be different, to feel fundamentally different, but we go at it with the exact same mindset.
The same habits, the same, underlying fear.
Exactly. And if you don't change that operating system, 2026 is just going to look like a slightly updated version of 2025.
Which is the definition of stagnation. And he connected it right to the failure of resolutions.
Oh, the gym membership.
The gym membership. You sign up, you're full of effort, you walk in once, and then the guilt sets in.
And instead of just admitting it, you keep paying that $60 monthly fee.
Right. Not out of commitment, but just pure shame until maybe the next year rolls around. It's just this exhausting cycle of striving and then self-condemnation.
And Pastor Jimmy challenged that immediately.
Right.
He grounded the whole vision in this idea that God is a God of progression.
The new wineskin idea.
Right. Suggesting that, if last year was good, 2026 is actually intended to be better. But, and this is the key, that improvement doesn't come from more effort.
It comes from a different kind of reliance, which I think brings us to the title itself, Grace Like Rain.
It does. Let's unpack that, because the origin story he shared was really intriguing. He said that while he was preparing all these other messages in December and early January, this phrase, grace like rain, it just kept coming to him.
Almost like a song stuck in his head.
Exactly. Even when he was writing about totally different topics.
And he finally had to, trace it back?
He did. He found it in an old song from 2003 by Todd Agnew, which Chris Tomlin later covered. For Pastor Jimmy, that was it. That was the confirmation. The theme had kind of already chosen him.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really extract the practical knowledge from this vision.
Yeah, what does Pastor Jimmy really mean when he says grace operates like an atmosphere, something that just surrounds us?
And how is recognizing that atmosphere the key to finally getting, some true restorative rest in the coming year?
So to start to understand grace as an atmosphere, Pastor Jimmy used this wonderful physical anecdote, the feeling of the phantom raindrop.
Right, that moment. You're in a Walmart parking lot, maybe.
Yep.
You feel a single drop of water on your arm. You look up and
Yeah.
nothing. No dark clouds. The sun might even be shining.
It makes you question your own senses.
Totally.
And Pastor Jimmy confirmed that feeling is real. He called them phantom raindrops or ghost raindrops.
Oh.
And he brought it up because it perfectly illustrates sensing something real before it's, visibly there. And he threw in that little fact that just blew my mind,
I know.
that raindrops are actually flat, like tiny hamburger bends, not the teardrop shape we see in cartoons.
Which just shows how our perception can be totally wrong about something we think we know so well.
Exactly.
And that's a foundational point for the whole metaphor. Pastor Jimmy explained the mechanism behind those phantom drops is our bodies and our senses are actually picking up on subtle changes.
The humidity, the smell of ozone in the air.
Right. All the things that signal that rain is coming. We're physically preparing for the rain before the actual drops arrive.
Okay, so here's the turn. This is where the physical becomes spiritual. If we can sense rain before we see it, Pastor Jimmy asks.
How many blessings are we already receiving that are real, but we just haven't given them language yet?
That's a huge question.
It is. It demands that we pay closer attention to those subtle internal shifts. He talked about a subtle easing in your soul or a quiet loosening.
That feeling people get when they just hear the concept of grace talked about.
Exactly. It's not a big miracle. It's just a sense that maybe you don't have to carry that load anymore. And that feeling, that internal shift, that is the phantom raindrop of grace arriving.
Arriving ahead of the visible change in your life.
Yes.
So it's about shifting our focus.
Yeah.
Stop demanding the big visible miracle and start acknowledging the small, quiet grace that's already here.
If we wait for the sky to darken completely, we miss all the signals that change is already on its way. It's an encouragement to just validate those small feelings of relief.
It's already in the air.
It's already in the air.
Okay, so now we move into the Old Testament source material, which really anchors this whole vision for 2026. Pastor Jimmy referenced King David's prayer from the Book of Psalms.
Where he asks that God be like rain falling on a mown grass.
And that word moan is so specific.
It's the whole key. Pastor Jimmy explained that David wasn't asking for rain on the tall, impressive, majestic grass.
No, he was asking for it on grass that had just been cut. It's exposed. It's fragile and vulnerable.
And what's the deep implication of that vulnerability? Pastor Jimmy taught that when grass is cut, it's actually more susceptible to fungus and disease.
It's in a state of weakness.
It is. And the critical insight here is that grace doesn't wait for the grass to grow back. It doesn't wait for you to recover or clean up your own mess.
Which is the trap, right? That's the psychological trap so many people fall into. We negotiate with grace.
Totally. I'll start receiving God's help after I fix my finances.
Or after I quit this bad habit, we think we have to prepare for it.
But the mown grass analogy just crushes that idea. Grace falls when you are exposed, when you're vulnerable, when you are at your lowest point.
So living as mown grass means what? Admitting your faults?
Yeah.
Accepting help?
And resting in that vulnerability instead of feeling like you have to perform your own recovery first.
Okay, and that leads right into the next point about the impartiality of rain itself.
Yeah, Pastor Jimmy contrasted it with, like, controlled city water.
Which you only get if you pay the bill and follow the rules.
But rain is indiscriminate. It's non-negotiable. He has that great analogy about his neighbor Cynthia's yard.
Her perfectly green lawn from the city water versus his own brown, struggling yard. Rain doesn't care.
It falls on Cynthia's perfect lawn and his struggling one.
It falls on the just and the unjust.
Meaning grace isn't limited by your worthiness or your bank account or what you did last week. It's atmospheric. It's just available.
And what does that non-negotiable grace invite us to do? Pastor Jimmy asked, what does the rain tell the ground?
It doesn't say try harder.
No, the ground just receives. And he linked this back to the idea that humans were created from the dirt, from the earth.
And if the soil's main role is to rest and receive, then Pastor Jimmy says the most productive thing that we can do
is also to rest. We measure productivity by output, but the Bible seems to connect it to receptivity.
Okay, so if the ultimate act is rest, we have to ask, what stops us? Why do we fight the very thing that's supposed to restore us?
Well, Pastor Jimmy suggested we look back to the ancient world. When it rained, it literally forced work to stop. Right. Plowing, harvesting, all of it just ceased when the rain started.
So rain enforced surrender, not effort. And the question for 2026 is, what if grace works the same way? What if it's an invitation to surrender our striving?
This connects directly to Jesus' offer in Matthew. Come to me all who are weary and carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest.
And Pastor Jimmy pointed out he didn't promise answers, he didn't promise money or a quick end to their problems.
He just promised the permission to stop trying so hard.
But here's the resistance. This is the central mechanism he named, the spiritual umbrella.
The rain of grace is falling, but we stay dry.
Because we pull out this umbrella of striving, of work, of guilt, and we actively fight against it.
And the psychology behind that is so profound. Why would we resist something so good? And it's often, it's rooted in fear.
Fear of irrelevance, fear of losing control, the idea that if I stop, everything will just fall apart.
Our whole identity is wrapped up in productivity.
Pastor Jimmy admitted he struggles with this himself, that powerful feeling of, if I don't do it, who will?
And the danger, as he framed it, is when you start seeking validation for that striving. You get angry because nobody noticed how hard you were working.
That need to be noticed is the identity trap. That feeling is the fabric of the umbrella.
He gave the perfect analogy to clarify this. The difference between being needed and being wanted.
The Cracker Barrel experience. Being needed is transactional. It's tiring. You're needed to pay the bill. Your value is your output.
But being wanted is restorative. You're wanted just for your presence for your company.
And Pastor Jimmy said, too many of us are addicted to that draining feeling of being needed instead of just resting in the reality of being wanted.
So the vision for 2026 is crystal clear. Put the umbrella down.
He really stressed that grace is not a reward for changing. It is the atmosphere that allows us to change.
And he used his own story, which was so powerful.
Yeah.
After the housing market crash, being $800,000 in debt, assuming he'd never own a home again.
But by stepping into grace, receiving it, when he felt he deserved it the least, a path opened up that he thought was totally impossible.
It wasn't his striving that fixed the debt. It was putting down that umbrella of control and just receiving the atmosphere of grace.
And this is key for anyone listening. Pastor Jimmy was quick to encourage those of us holding an umbrella.
Right. It doesn't mean you're faithless.
No. It just means you've successfully learned how to survive in a hard world. But the mandate for 2026 is to start to unlearn those survival tactics so you can finally live.
Yeah.
And that decision to unlearn survival and put down the umbrella brings us to the final, I think, the ultimate revelation of grace.
Yeah, from the story Pastor Jimmy shared from the book of Luke, the dinner party at Simon's house.
Pastor Jimmy set the scene so well. Simon, the host, is orderly, respectable. He follows all the rules.
Everyone knows how to behave. It's an elite party, and then this woman enters.
Uninvited, unannounced, and she makes zero apologies for her presence.
And she doesn't go to Simon the host. She goes straight to Jesus, kneels at his feet.
And starts washing them with her tears and drying them with her hair, which is a huge social no-no.
And then she breaks open this extremely expensive alabaster jar of perfume. And the smell just fills the whole room.
And the fragrance of that act of surrender, that was the catalyst. Pastor Jimmy's insight was that grace doesn't create tension. It reveals the tension that's already there.
That smell made everyone drop their masks.
Yeah.
And the air just filled with judgment, calculation, and distance.
And Simon, the host, he immediately starts measuring. He thinks, if Jesus were a real prophet, he'd know what kind of woman this is. He wouldn't let her touch him.
So Simon represents the response of those who measure. They measure worth, dedication, background.
Before they grant access. And the woman represents the absolute opposite.
She just kneels. She
Yeah.
rests in the presence of grace without asking permission or validation.
And Pastor Jimmy framed this as the two fundamental responses we have when grace enters our lives. We either measure it or we kneel to receive it.
And so many of us try to do both, which is just impossible.
And the saddest part of the story, as Pastor Jimmy analyzed it, was Jesus's question to Simon.
Do you see this woman?
Yeah. And Simon couldn't. He was so wrapped up in the proper narrative and her reputation and judging her past that he couldn't actually see the person right in front of him.
That's a devastating failure, and Pastor Jimmy admitted it's so common. We do it to our own spouses, our kids.
We're so busy calculating their behavior or our own striving that we fail to see them.
But the woman, through her surrender, she gained something profound. She didn't ask permission to rest her full weight at his feet.
She just did it. And Pastor Jimmy stresses that Jesus protected her in that moment of vulnerability. Grace gives us permission to stop, and Jesus ensures we're safe when we do.
So the 2026 vision really is summarized in that final scene.
The
the shift from measuring to kneeling.
It is. Growth comes from receiving the atmosphere of grace, not from striving to achieve it. Faith, Pastor Jimmy suggests, looks a lot less like exhausting effort.
It's a lot more like radical, vulnerable trust. And Pastor Jimmy's closing invitation to you, the listener, was so simple and beautiful. Notice the phantom raindrops you didn't expect.
Trust that quiet easing you felt before you could even explain it.
Lower your umbrella, rest without guilt, and receive without apology.
And that leaves us with the final provocative thought to mull over as you head into this new year.
Building on all of this.
What if the thing that has been wearing you out the most isn't the problem you're facing, but the spiritual umbrella you are holding up to fight the grace that is already falling?
Maybe that gentle permission to just stop, to be mown grass, is the very grace you've been waiting for all along. Grace and peace, friends.